I came home from vacation to find my neighbor's house crushed by my tree, a lawsuit waiting on my doorstep, and a lawyer claiming I was responsible for every dollar of damage. What they didn't know yet was that I had anti-cut the tree at Olanda. Single lie would end up costing her everything. Before I get into what happened next, you need a little context, because this didn't start with the tree. It started months earlier, with my neighbor Karen and her obsession with what she believed she deserved. I live in a quiet neighborhood where most of the houses were built decades ago. The lots aren't uniform. Some are bigger, some are smaller, and mine just happens to be one of the larger ones. I never thought much about it, but Karen did. She lived next door, and from the moment I met her, it was clear she had a problem with anything she thought was unfair. She complained about everything. She once told me it wasn't fair that she had to bring her trash cans to the curb herself and said the garbage collectors should come into her yard and get them. Not because she was disabled or elderly, she just didn't want to do. Italiano, she lived with her husband and 2 teenage sons, all perfectly capable. But somehow, this was still an injustice in her eyes. Over time, I heard more stories from other neighbors. She complained that other people's lawns were bigger, that some houses had better views, that someone else's driveway was longer. Everything was unfair to her, and she made sure everyone knew it. Eventually, that entitlement turned toward me. One day, Karen decided that part of my property actually belonged to her. According to her, the boundary lines were wrong, and she was the real owner of a chunk of my land. She went to the town to complain, insisting there had been a mistake decades ago. While the town was still reviewing records, she decided she didn't need to wait. She built a fence, not on a property line, but several feet onto my land. I stayed calm. I didn't yell. I didn't confront her aggressively. I knew how these things worked. The town would send a surveyor, confirm the lines, and she'd be told to remove the fence. Sure enough, that's exactly what happened. When the survey came back, it showed the original property lines were correct. My land was bigger. Hers was not. The town ordered her to remove the fence, calling it illegal construction on someone else's property. Karen was furious. She came to my house and told me that if I were a good neighbor, I'd just let her have the land. When Primera Saidi, no, she called me greedy and selfish and said she needed it more than I did. When I asked why, she couldn't give a single reason. Eventually, she removed the fence. Things went quiet. I assumed it was over. Primera, what is wrong? On my property near the side of her house stood a massive white pine tree. It was old, likely older than both of us. It was healthy, tall, and beautiful. Karen hated it. She complained constantly that it blocked her sunlight and dropped needles in her yard. I had no intention of ever cutting it down, even if I wanted to. Tree laws in my area are strict. You need permits, arborist reports, proof the tree is dead or dangerous. This tree was none of those things. A few months later, my kids had spring break. I took time off work and we went on vacation together. We were gone for 6 days. On the 4th day, my phone rang. I assumed it was work-related, but instead, it was a lawyer's office I'd never heard of. They told me I was being sued. According to them, a tree from my yard had fallen and destroyed my neighbor's house. They demanded I return home immediately, eat a logure and take responsibility. I had no idea what they were talking about. I ended the vacation early and drove home. When I arrived, I saw it. The white pine was gone. What was left of it was lying across Karen's house, crushing part of the roof. The damage was extensive, but what caught my eye immediately was the stump. It was cleanly cut. There were chainsaw marks. Fresh sawdust. Trees don't fall like that. Karen claimed the tree just fell, and that I was responsible. Her lawyers demanded I pay for the removal, the repairs, and even hotel expenses, while her family stayed elsewhere. I refused to settle. In court, her story changed. Suddenly, she claimed I had hired an illegal tree-cutting company that didn't use safety precautions, didn't get permits, and ran off when the tree fell on her house. The problem was, I wasn't even home. I had receipts, photos, timestamps, and travel records, proving my entire family was out of town. My lawyer pointed out the contradictions. He warned her about lying under oath. That's when Karen cracked. She admitted she hired the company herself. She said she thought the tree was on her property and believed I should still pay for the damage. That didn't go well for her. The town fined her heavily for removing a protected tree without a permit. The company she hired turned out to be unlicensed and uninsured. They admitted she paid them under the table. Then came the tree appraisal. An arborist evaluated the remains of the white pine. They considered its age, height, health, rarity, and environmental value. When they finished, they gave a number, $240,000. That was the value of the tree she destroyed. I sued her for every cent. She tried to argue she needed the money to fix her house first. The court didn't agree. She was ordered to pay me on a quarter-arranged payment plan and also cover the stump removal. Her house repairs were minimal. The rebuilt section looked mismatched and cheap. It stood out painfully. With the money, I planted a new white pine sapling. It wouldn't be big in my lifetime, but one day, a tree would stand there again. I also built a patio and bought my kids a trampoline booth, clearly visible from Karen's yard. She tried telling neighbors I ruined her life. No one believed her. Now, when I see her, I smile and wave. She avoids eye contact, and every time I look at that sapling, I'm reminded that entitlement has consequences.